got it set up the other verse. Yeah, this is kind of the introduction.
Hare Krishna. Om Ajnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshur Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Vishnaya Rudave Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravaani Nirvishesha Shunnavadi Srila Prabhupada. So as Shiki Maiti Prabhu mentioned, that the most interesting feature of this program to him is listening to Srila Prabhupada's pastimes. Spiritual personality is a personality who descends from the spiritual sky. A spiritual personality like Srila Prabhupada descended from the spiritual world. He came down from the spiritual world. Therefore, all his activities are unusual. Beyond this material nature, there is the spiritual nature. The spiritual reality is the reality where Krishna eternally resides along with his eternal associates. And their activities, like the spiritual domain, are also full of eternal knowledge and bliss. Those pastimes are eternal. Like, for example, Madhavendra Puri, when Kshirchar Gopinath stole the pot of kshir for him, and Madhavendra Puri was given that pot of milk with the narration by the Pujari, what actually happened. Madhavendra Puri ran away from that place that night, thinking that pratishtha, fame, will spread, and he wanted to run away from fame. But the reality is, although Madhavendra Puri ran away from pratishtha, but pratishtha or fame ran after Madhavendra. And as a result of that, after so many years, about 600 years, 700 years after that incident, we are still remembering that. And not only we are remembering that, that became known all over the world. So, although a devotee wants to run away from fame, but the fame runs after him. The activities of a spiritual personality is so unusual that people remember that and derive transcendental joy out of it. So one such personality undoubtedly is Srila Prabhupada. Prabhupada, in a way, it seemed that for so many years Prabhupada was unrecognized. Prabhupada's greatness was not really recorded and recognized even by the people, even by the devotees who were surrounding him at the time. But then, what Srila Prabhupada did made Prabhupada known all over the world. Prabhupada came to America, we know how Prabhupada came. Prabhupada literally came without any penny, without a pound. No support, no patronage. Didn't even know where he was going to stay. But coming to America in that way, within a short span of time, what Srila Prabhupada did was inconceivable. And along with that, we also see when Prabhupada came, many wonderful devotees also came, being attracted by Srila Prabhupada and assisted him in his mission. And those are the devotees who not only assisted Srila Prabhupada in his mission, but witnessed Srila Prabhupada's greatness. They became attracted by Srila Prabhupada's greatness. And those devotees are still present on this planet. And it's a great opportunity to be able to hear from them about Srila Prabhupada's amazing activities, his most wonderful pastimes. So it's very nice that devotees, many devotees those days recorded Srila Prabhupada's activities. Those days video was not a very common thing. Now even practically everybody carries one of the most advanced video recorders, iPhone. Everybody has it. But those days videos were very rare. Tape recorders were quite rare. But fortunately, we had those facilities and they had been recorded. Prabhupada's lectures, Prabhupada's morning work discussions had been recorded, Prabhupada's activities had been recorded. Jaduvar Prabhu was assigned by Srila Prabhupada to film Prabhupada's activities with his wife, Vishakha Mataji. And as a result of that, today we can get to hear about Srila Prabhupada's pastimes. We can see Srila Prabhupada's activities that have been recorded. And we are very fortunate. Like sometimes we wish that there were recordings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's activities, the recordings of the Goswami's activities, Goswami's lectures, their discussions on that. So that way, the scientific and technological development today helped us a lot. Like today we can hear Prabhupada, today we can see Srila Prabhupada. And we are also very fortunate to be able to hear from those devotees who have been with Srila Prabhupada. Whenever you're ready, just let me know. Okay. So now, let's see what Jaduvar Prabhu has presented. Like he had showing, no matter how famous the movie is, just, after a short while, people forget about it and they don't want to watch it anymore. Like we have seen so many movies, like say for example, Gone with the Wind, Dr. Zhivago. I mean, they were sensational movies of that time. But nowadays people don't even, know about them. Whereas the spiritual things, with the passing of time, the popularity increases. Like today, maybe it has been shown in X number of movie theaters, but with the passing of time, I mean, this will be continuing to be shown not only in movie theaters, rather it will become X number of movie theaters that it will be shown, and X multiplied by nth number of houses will have these movie videos. So people will continue to watch these movies. And this is the thing, like say for example, Prabhupada's books, will they ever become old? Will people ever think that, well, I have read it and there is no need for that? No. The more we go into that, the deeper we want to go into it. And I can see that that's what's going to happen to your production. With the passing of time, the popularity and the demand will keep on increasing. Thank you so much, Jaduvar Prabhu, for creating this wonderful thing. Another thing I was actually thinking, this actually shows when somebody wants to serve Krishna, then how Krishna actually helps. It was just a chance thought that you thought of, putting them together. But because you made this effort, like see what an international appeal this has got. And this actually should inspire us to sincerely try to serve Krishna. Because when we sincerely try to serve Krishna, our effort not only meets with a glorious success, but it actually becomes an epic in the course of time. Thank you so much.
Hare
Krishna.
Prabhu ki jai. So this time we're going to begin our Leela Smarna. And generally in Atlanta, they start with Prabhupada's Leela. And as we all are aware, Prabhupada came to Atlanta what year?
1975.
1975. So that's 45 years ago. So normally we have these, I don't know what it is, about 45, 50. We usually have some special celebration. On the 35th anniversary of the installation of Sri Sri Gauri Thai, we had a big Abhishek. Lokanath Maharaj is here. How many people were here at that time? That was probably almost 10 years ago. Very nice, very spontaneous. So if everyone could move up, because more people will be coming in. So we want to bring up the Prabhupada disciples here. And
Hare Krishna. Thank you all for being here again for Panihati Festival. This is probably my, I think maybe 5th time here over the last 10 years or so. Sikhi Mahiti Prabhu I was actually not going to talk about the Atlanta time frame at all because I thought many others would. But he seemed to wanting to lead up to it. And it was much more than just Prabhupada spending a few days in Atlanta. I've spoken about it many times. We were just talking this morning. As Sikhi said, I joined Prabhupada again. He sent me ahead from Juhu. This was 1975. And I had been ill in India. I was always ill in India. So after 6 more months in India, Prabhupada landed in Juhu. So this was approximately January of 1975. So then he told myself and Brahmananda to go forward to Hawaii. There was some difficulty in Hawaii at that time, which is not unusual. So we went ahead there. Anyway, finally Prabhupada came to Hawaii. On the way to Hawaii, he was with Paramahamsa and Nitai. So I just came from a festival in Los Angeles. It was Prabhupada Cook's festival. So there were 7 of us there. Myself, Harikesha, Prabhu was there. What's her name? Kashuri, French devotee Kashuri, who cooks for Prabhupada. Palika, Sruti Rupa, Arundhati, and Kasalia. So they were all cooks. And except for his servants, of course Prabhupada's servants were always male, the other cooks were generally always the ladies, his disciples. So it was very interesting, because the point is how Prabhupada dealt with all of us as individuals. Even as cooks, we all had certain specialties that he would call on regularly. The way he dealt with us as far as how we went about cooking, the level of Brahminical standards. Prabhupada seemed very relaxed with me when I cooked. He would come see me in my room. He didn't put a very high bar for me. And looking back, I can see, because he knew I couldn't jump over high bars. So he dealt with all of us according to our capacity, but always encouraging us. Never made you feel guilty, never made you feel like you couldn't do something. It was quite the opposite. I remember, I think we all remember when we were with Prabhupada, we thought we were going to go back home, back to Godhead, right? At the end of this lifetime. We knew we were going to be pure devotees because he assured us that we could be. So on the trip. But still, the thing about Prabhupada was how wonderful he was, his sense of humor. And I'm seeing more and more as years go by, so many things, how he dealt with me. There was a smile behind it, you know, there was humor behind it. Simple little things, you know, when massaging him at night and he's saying, do my fingers, do my fingers. And then I grab his finger and I start yanking it. You know? And he's there, no, my fingers, and he starts wiggling his toes. You know? 2 years later, he did the exact same thing, and I had no memory of it. And again, he's in bed, and he's, my finger, so I grab his finger. Of course, fingers and toes are the same word, right? In Bengali, many languages, it's just appendages. But I didn't know. For me, it was fingers and toes. So. But then he used that, just because it was funny. So when he was coming to Hawaii, he was on the plane. And next to him, Prabhupada always at the window, next to him was Nitai, who was Grahasta. And next to him was Paramahamsa at the aisle. And there was a stewardess coming down, a young stewardess. And Prabhupada was looking in the seat in front of him were the magazines. You know, then they had Newsweek, Time. So there was one of them, and it was a picture of a lot of ladies with their hands up in the air, women's liberation. It was very, very big in the 70s, this idea of women's liberation. And there was a fire in the photo. You could see a fire because they were burning some of their clothing because they didn't need it anymore. And so Prabhupada would look. So then here comes this lady, young, pretty stewardess walking down. And Prabhupada nudges, Nitai, tell her. She wants to be liberated. Tell her, shave her head. He said, then she'll be liberated. And she's still walking, and Prabhupada keeps nudging. Tell her, come on, tell her. She can be liberated. They'll shave her head. So then Prabhupada came to Hawaii, and I joined him. And from this point, I was with Prabhupada a long time. And I could never say what Prabhupada was thinking, what was going on in his mind. But as what I saw was a very ecstatic spiritual master, one that I never saw in such a way. It was always there, but he kept it very tightly capped. He never showed us that. It was a very rare thing to see any type of ecstatic symptoms. He's a pure devotee. You think he wasn't in ecstasy all the time? He was with Krishna all the time, seeing Krishna everywhere. He was always in ecstasy, but we just saw her sitting, chanting, playing mridanga, doing everything like us. But it started leaking out. That's what I saw. Every place. It was just, he couldn't contain it. And I don't know why. But one thing I think is that he was just overwhelmed what he had done. It was unbelievable even to him. Because he didn't do it. He never said he did it. He never said he did anything. It was always his spiritual master. It was us. All you people who came to help my spiritual master. And that was genuine. He wasn't just saying it to sound humble. He knew. That's realization. He knew Krishna's doing everything. He was there praying. Many times I say in Los Angeles, Prabhupada, Los Angeles was a very wonderful place. Prabhupada seemed to have so much freedom there in his rooms. And he would just talk. He would just say things, to me. Because I was the one walking in and out of the room so many times. We just say different things. One time I walked in, offer obeisances, and he didn't ask. He just said, we want to go back home, back to Godhead. He said, we have that desire. He said, we're not so advanced that we think, I want to come back life after life and do service. He said, we're not so advanced. He meant, you're not so advanced. Prabhupada used we so many ways. When Prabhupada spoke, you had to know what he was saying, because sometimes he would say, we did this, and we did this, and it meant he did it. But he didn't say I, he would say we. But then in this instance, he said, we're not so advanced. So that's a different we. Right? He said, we want to go back home, back to Godhead. And I think like that, because he said that right here. We all know the story. Instead of leading up to it, that was the ultimate part of this whole trip. You think it was here in the temple room. And here, he cried, right? He told the lecture, 2-minute lecture. We all know it. These two lords, whenever I see them, I think, you people are so blessed here, you know? Because I feel so blessed to be able to come, offer them some items once a year, at least for now, seeking Mahiti. He invites me. He invites me because I'll talk about Prabhupada. He knows if he can poke, I'll talk about Prabhupada. He loves Prabhupada. This is what we want to arrive at. I spoke in Los Angeles before the festival, and the verse in Bhagavatam was about Krishna and Arjuna, and how Arjuna pacified his separation from Krishna. How did he pacify it? By remembering the instructions Krishna gave him. By remembering what Krishna said to him, his heart became pacified from the feelings of separation. I don't have any feelings of separation for Krishna. I don't know him. But I know Sikhi feels separation from Prabhupada. Even I can feel some separation from Prabhupada. Because he's right here. He's so easy. He's so easy to feel. He's so easy to have his presence. Because he's present. We know Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda, they're all so present. That's what Prabhupada said. They're very, very merciful. They've opened up the storehouse of love of God. But what's the first thing? You're going to experience love of your spiritual master, have love of Prabhupada. If we can't get to there, there's nowhere else to go. You're not going to jump into love of Krishna. We have to do the service. That's what Prabhupada told me. When I told him, I didn't look him in the eye, I was behind him, massaging him, and I said, Prabhupada, I don't feel any love like my godbrothers and godsisters. Anyway, it was hours later before he finally answered me, and I was in so much anxiety. I had told him I didn't even have love for him. And he just said, do you like your service? I said, yes, Prabhupada. Who wouldn't like that service? Massaging him, cooking for him. I said, yes, very much. He said, well, service is love. He said, just do your service. He said, everything will be all right. You'll become a lover of Krishna. So Prabhupada came here, but before he came here, he went to Los Angeles. As you say, he went to Mexico City. And that's where I started to see it. Because Los Angeles was 1968, 1969. But now he's in Mexico City. This was not South America. It was Mexico. This was no longer the USA.
First visit to Mexico?
75, I'm not sure. Was that his first visit to Mexico?
Anybody know?
Does anyone know? I believe so. I think so.
The other bar went though.
I think he went earlier.
I think there was one other time. Yeah. Anyway, at this time they had the big temple, Mexico City, hundreds of devotees, all ages, grandmothers, grandfathers, mothers, fathers, children. It was Mexico. So many pious people. And Prabhupada, every time now, every Vyasa he sits on, he's going to stop speaking because he can't speak anymore. Because he's just filled with too much ecstasy. So from Mexico City, he went to Caracas. He gave almost the same lecture he started to give here. And that's what he started to say, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, they're very merciful. He said they've come from very far. He said they've traveled a long distance to come and be with you. See, again, it was him traveling long distance. He never said those things. But you have to hear what he's saying. He was traveling all over the 14 times around the world. He never stopped. We couldn't keep up with him. Young boys in our 20s couldn't keep up on his walks in the plane. Couldn't get up when he got up in the morning. But he was doing it. He was traveling far to be with us. And he saw the success of it all. So the same thing, he stopped. He said they're very merciful. And he had to stop speaking because he went into ecstasy. He'd go and he was in ecstasy, but it was so much that he couldn't contain it. And that's what he would do. He would just close his eyes. And finally Kirtan would start. So then he went to, we all know the story, then he came to Miami. And again, he started talking Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. He was seeing it happened. He did it all around the world, everywhere he went. There wasn't a spot he could go. People were chanting everywhere. Who can imagine his feelings, the ecstasy that Prabhupada had? You know, there was the one time he said to me in his room, because his father would give him anything he wanted. Because at nighttime he kept asking his mother for puris. He was a child. He said, puris. Mother said, no, muri. Puri is too heavy. Give you muri. No, puris. Prabhupada didn't take no. He didn't accept that answer. No, puris. So 3 times he said, she kept saying no. And then my father said, if he wants puris, give him puris. And then Prabhupada massaging his legs, and then he said, perhaps my father knew. What does that mean? Perhaps my father knew. That out of all of creation, this one person came to this place, this material world, this earthly planet, and transformed an entire planet in a few short years. Maharaj can tell you, travel, try. How much can you do? You know, you try to inspire, right? Disciples, I'm sure, everywhere. That's what Prabhupada did. I always say we were like tops. None of you youngsters even know what a top is. The thing, you had a string around it, you pull it, and it could spin. But when it slowed down, it really went crazy. It didn't just slow down and stop. It was so that's what we would do as his disciples. So he was constantly running around, winding up that tops, so we would be inspired. We could continue in our service. Because in LA, he said, my disciples, he said, you've taken so many drugs, so much illicit sex. He said, you can't accomplish anything except for the chanting of Hare Krishna. He said, if not for the chanting of Hare Krishna, he said, you couldn't do anything. That's what he thought about us. But it was only because of his chanting. Imagine, one person, everything, I can't speak for anything I did was only because he allowed it. He accepted our service. He accepted our service if we followed the principles, if we didn't follow the principles, if we chanted our rounds, if we didn't chant our rounds. He was pushing on. So this is our duty. Push it on. Doesn't mean just sit in here. Kumbaya kirtans for 24 hours a day. You go out and do something. Go out and chant your kirtans. This, you have to. If you were here when Prabhupada was here, you know there's no choice. If I want to please my spiritual master, I have to help him. And the only way to help him is to help him in his mission, is ISKCON society. And that's what he was doing each place. And each place going into ecstasy. Because he saw the deities being taken care of so nicely. These things made him happy. When he saw everyone around him jumping up and down, the old jumping beam, he became very happy. He saw we were advancing in Krishna consciousness. That's always what he saw, that we were advancing. Not how horrible we were. Because despite that, we accepted his philosophy, we accepted him, we accepted his love, and we returned it by serving. So that's our business. And our ultimate business, we want to go back home, back to Godhead, right? So one of those nights, he was upstairs in his room. You know, the big picture, Krishna Balaram, cowherd boys, lots of cows and calves. And I was massaging his legs, massaging his feet. And he was very blissful. Always, Maharaj knows too. The best place was, for me, Prabhupada in the temple room giving lectures, that was nice. But when he went behind the door into his room, he was just like us. He was just a devotee of Krishna. He had his spiritual master. He had his duties, chanting his rounds, reading his books. This is what he did. It was so pleasant. He was a lover of Krishna. Huh? All this was duty, what you saw out here. Yeah. What was I saying?
Duty. Forget it. All duty. All duty.
Duty, everything's duty. Harikesh told a story. It was a funny story. I think it was Harikesh when he first met Prabhupada. He said he was very excited because Prabhupada was giving a lecture, and he said, we have many do-nots. Many do-nots. So Harikesh thought he said donuts. So he was very happy looking for donuts. But then he finally realized that Prabhupada was saying we have many do-nots. We do not do this, we do not do. We always hear. See, that's, Prajumna told me that many years ago. There's three things in Krishna consciousness. We have the deities, we have books, and we have guru. And the deities, of the three, there's only one active principle. The deities are passive. Huh? I just see brass. He sees Lord Chaitanya, Lord Nityananda. Everyone sees according to our vision. And even when you read the books, we read them, but we'll all have something different, a little bit different to say. We hear this. But the guru, he's the one that's active. He smashes your misconceptions over and over again. And sometimes, like with Prabhupada, he would do it so expertly, so cleverly. Even with a smile on his face, he could smash you. But he would. Like I said, when he asked me, do you like this music? Tabla sitar in the plane. So immediately I would become, don't want to say the wrong thing. I always don't answer because I knew it was a trick question. There's always, and it was tricky because it didn't matter what you said, you were always wrong. Because it was a test, and the test was just to mess with your mind. That's what he would do. So far I'm listening to and it was lovely. But I just looked at him, and then finally he said, it's very nice. I said, yes, Prabhupada. But then I had two people sitting next to me. He did the same thing to them. Do you like this? Yes, Prabhupada. It is sense gratification music. The point was always, you don't know anything. That's what the guru teaches you. Just listen because you don't know. And then he said, but it's nice sense gratification. And that's, so I guess I should finish the story. So in his room, I'm massaging him. The most precious times for me. Out of 24 hours, of course feeding him was nice, but in his room at night, when no one else can appear, is the best time in the world to be with him. Because you're just alone with him, and somehow or other he might talk to you. So he said, I like the cowherd boys very much. And that was the second time he said it to me. The first time was 3 years before in Los Angeles when I was reading Krishna book. And before I started, he just said, I like the cowboys very much. So now he's looking at this painting. He's not looking at it, he's like in the painting, and I'm massaging him. And he said every morning, he said, Krishna and his friends, cowboys, they would go to the forest of Vrindavan, he said, to herd calves. He said they were young then, 5, 6. He said they didn't herd cows. He said they herded the calves. And their mothers, before they went, they would prepare tiffin, their tiffin lunch, because they stayed out all day. And I'm rubbing him, and he's just speaking this very softly. And he said, Mother Jasoda, she would make puris, halava, like that, kachur, laglu. But in the others, it was more simple, chapati, rice. And then they would go out. He said, and they would play, and they would grab Krishna's tiffin. They would take his tiffin from and keep away. He said, then they would eat from Krishna's tiffin, kachuri, laglu, puri, halva. And Krishna would eat from their tiffin. Then he stopped. Then he said, I just want to go back to the spiritual world and eat kachuri and laglu with Krishna. And then he closed his eyes. But he was serious, it was real. Like I could say that, eh, but Prabhupada says that. You know that's what he's waiting for. He's already there, but it's different there. It's a different there. He was looking forward to that. Huh? We hear so many stories of what he would do. So then, after Atlanta, he went to London. The same thing happened to Bhaktivedanta Matter. He went into ecstasy. In the kirtan, right? Just stopped. So every place he went, he did it in Caracas, in Miami, here. Then he went to Bhaktivedanta Manor, and again he went into ecstasy. So I saw him on the Vyasasan 3 times within a month. After never seeing it happen, within 1 month, I saw him just lose control. Prabhupada lost control. And the 3rd time was in Mayapur. So, and that was during Gaur Purnima, the 1975 Gaur Purnima festival. And when he was in his room, again he said something very special. Jayapataka praised him, Bhavananda, you made this beautiful lotus building. Prabhupada said, it's Krishna's. He said, I had an idea, but Krishna has made design. He had made all the plan. And then he said, my spiritual master, he said, it's by his mercy. Then he said, it's the mercy of Bhakti Vinod Thakur. He said he predicted that devotees from many countries, they would all come together in Mayapur. He has made this prediction. And again, then he said, I may be that person. Again, only time you'll hear it. And it is recorded. The other time, my father might know. He said that a few times to me, but it's never recorded. But this time it was on record, and he said, that person I may be. And then he looked at Jayapataka and he said, so what kind of bananas are you planting? So this was Prabhupada. He realized he let something slip out that he doesn't normally do. So immediately he started talking about banana trees. And then he said, the Sarabi cow, he said you should mate it with a Jersey cow. You know, here in the Jersey cows has the most cream content, right, of any cow. So Prabhupada said, you mate them and then we'll have more cream and they'll be able to take the hot weather. You know, like the Sarabi, they can stay in the heat. So this was, Prabhupada was international in every way imaginable. I see things sometimes now on social media talking about type A cow, type B cow. Prabhupada just had Krishna's cows. There was no A, B, C, D. Just like there are no Brahmin, Kshatriya, Vaishya, Sudra, Brahmachari. Everyone was the same to Prabhupada. Do service. Whoever you are, whatever you're doing wrong, try to help Prabhupada. Everything will be all right. That's what he says. Every time he speaks, that's what he tells you. Just do something for Krishna. Do something to help me. That's what he wanted. And he traveled all around the world just telling us the same thing over and over. Just serve Krishna, you'll be happy. Chant Hare Krishna and be happy. So simple. I could stop here. Any questions?
Questions?
Yes.
Is there any indication of what Prabhupada was translating or working on at that time, in that month where he was expressing these ecstasies?
It was the fifth canto. Fifth canto is the hellish planets in the universe. So, yeah. No, it's a good question, because the one thing you'll see is Prabhupada, there was always continuity in everything he did. So he's translating 1 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, and then he'll go on his walk and he'll bring up points about what he was translating, you know. So then in the lecture, maybe it'll come up again in another form. So it wasn't just he came in, did the verse, and did a class. Everything was together, you know. There was a cohesion in how he did things. And specifically in the temples he was at. Like he knew, you know, what the main difficulty was in every temple. You know, if there were always difficulties. Like in Hawaii, you know, that's where he coined the no lazies, no crazies. You know, it hasn't changed 50 years later. You know, you're trying to, it's Hawaii. You know, it's crazy. People are lazy and crazy. So Prabhupada always knew where he went. You know, he'd go to the next place and say, give me Raj Bhog. Wasn't because he knew it was good, it's because he knew it wasn't good. And then he would say, this is garbage. His famous line was, this dal tastes like mud. I heard that in 4 different cities. So someone had a specific recipe to make it taste like mud, I guess, because he always used that expression, it tastes like mud. And then he would break the chapatis, because they were like crackers. Ooh. If it's not puffed up, it's not a chapati, it's just a cracker. So, but he always knew, but he did things in such a way that he didn't disturb you. He was always telling me what to do, but he never told me what to do. You understand that? He would say things to me in such a way that if I had any intelligence, I would do it. We were in Florida, and Prabhupada walked in the door of what was Abhiram's cottage, I guess, so that was Prabhupada's cottage. And there was a big picture, painting again, Krishna and Arjuna on the chariot. And Arjuna's sitting there, like that. You all know that picture? Arjuna's in a little anxiety. And I have Prabhupada's bags. I'm right behind him, and he stops right in front of the painting. I like this painting very much. I fell for it. I said, why? I should have just said, I like it too. I said, why? He said, just see. He said, Krishna's telling Arjuna, you have to kill your family members. I was working on going back to my wife and child in Hawaii, so I was going to leave him in 3 days. I was leaving him to be with my family. That was my plan. I hadn't told him, but it was my plan. So he said, Krishna's telling him, you have to kill your friends and family. What to speak of leaving them? If Krishna wants, you have to kill them. He kept saying, what to speak of leaving them? He knew I was away from my family. But he didn't see some young grahasta with a 6-month-old child and newly married 2 years. No, he just saw somebody that was helping him in his mission. Someone that was helping him travel around. And you just do it. Because I'm not going to be here that much longer. See, these are all the things he knew, telling us what to do. He didn't tell me. He didn't say, stay here with me. He told me, you should kill your family if Krishna wants. That's how he told me. I never even figured it out for 30 years. That's what I mean. He would tell me things all the time, but I just thought he was talking. But he was talking to me. Anyway, eventually it sinks in. Hopefully. All right. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
We'll have some questions afterwards. Go ahead.
Okay, one quick question. I just heard the story, I don't know. I never read it, so I don't know how authentic it is. You're talking about Srila Prabhupada describing the cowherd boys and he wants to go back. I heard there's a story where somebody asked Srila Prabhupada, he said, "Are you a cowboy?" And then Srila Prabhupada said, "Yes, I am a cowboy," or "I'm a cowherd boy," something like that. Have you ever heard that?
I think that was way back 1967 with what's her name, Jamuna's sister. Anyway, one of the ladies, yeah, she wrote a poem. I think she wrote a poem, and in it she mentioned. So Prabhupada said yes. He told them to print it in Back to Godhead. Prabhupada never gave any definitive answer as to what his spiritual form was. Quite the opposite. He would say it's, he said, once he said, if I told you, you would faint to Prajumna, like that. But he liked the cowherd boys very much. But then again, what was he going to say to me? I like the gopis very much. So, to try to extrapolate something else from a statement like that, and just because he was talking to this young boy, and I could relate to the cowherd boys. I like the cowherd boys very much, and he knew that. When you're a young boy, what do you like? Like Krishna, the cowherd boys, blood, demons. So he said that to me, but I wouldn't make any statements from that. Yes.
That's great. Sruta Kirti Prabhu ki. So, we're very fortunate to have here Balavanti Prabhu. Well, because of Balavanti Prabhu, we have in Krishna consciousness in Atlanta. He was a student at Emory University, and somehow or another he facilitated the devotees to start the first center downtown Atlanta. Of course, he's very instrumental in us having this building we have here now, the installation of these beautiful Gaurani deities, as you heard this morning, going to Panihati, India, and having the pastimes. So many things he had here. He had first political party. He was running for mayor of Atlanta. Prabhupada was very proud of that. And he's one of the original GBC members also. So he's very dear to Prabhupada. And of course, if you look at that Hare Krishna movie, you may not recognize him as a young man speaking in there. Speaking so intelligently and eloquently, most of us are just, uneducated, at least myself, running around teenage boys. But, so he's here and he can tell us a little more about whatever you like. Prabhupada's here, your visions or anything. So this is your opportunity to please talk to us. Hare Krishna, Balavanti Prabhu ki.
Well, thank you, Prabhu. Hard to follow Sruta Kirti from. It's not fair. My association with Srila Prabhupada was primarily the Vapu, because there were so many devotees all over the world, and very special devotees like Sruta Kirti who would travel with Prabhupada. And the rest of us, we were soldiers who were in the field fighting to try to establish this movement. So I know a little bit about his Vapu, having associated with it for now close to 50 years. So I can say a few words about that. Coming back here to Atlanta, I lived here from 1966 to about 1978 or 79. And to see the things that have changed, you really see that this life is flickering. The world of the senses, it really doesn't last. It's an image that appears before us, and it exists for some time, and then it evaporates. And we take it to be, but it is real in a sense. It is temporary, but it is temporary. Whereas the Krishna consciousness that we develop by having the association of a pure devotee, that's eternal. So when when Srila Prabhupada was here, we walked around Central Park, Piedmont Park, and even then there were some buildings that you could see in the distance. Not so many as there are now, but they were big buildings. And Srila Prabhupada had his cane, and he pointed at the buildings, and he said, "Do not be impressed. The Krishna will finish in a moment." So we don't know what's going to happen to this world. I know the world that I knew in Atlanta in the 1970s is gone. It's completely gone. I mean, the buildings themselves are gone. Our temple was on 13th Street, which is, between 10th and 14th. It was just off of West Peachtree, and it's just that whole area. I mean, you can't even recognize it. I was walking there today, and there were some people walking the other direction, and I mentioned them. I said, "I used to live here," and it's complete. And they were young, and they were polite. "Oh, it must be quite an experience to see." And yes, but they didn't care. We're all here imprisoned in our own bodies. We're imprisoned in our own bodies, and we have friends that give us some relief from the blazing fire of material existence. And we get some happiness in the material world from time to time from our friends and family. And that's Krishna's mercy upon us. He smiles upon us. But it's so temporary, and in a sense we're alone. Lord Chaitanya says, "I'm the only friend you have in this world." And he sent, and my wife found a book on Hinduism written by someone recently, and so I always look and see, do they mention Prabhupada? And yes, they did. They have a whole section on Srila Prabhupada, and they say how he was born in a family of Vaishnavas in Bengal, and so he knew Lord Chaitanya from childhood, and he had the Ratha Yatra festival as a child. And his family worshipped Radha and Krishna. So this is the world that he came from. And he came here. And I remember, when I first met him, I first met his Vapu. And I met his Vapu before I met him personally. And this was back in 1969. But he was in New York, and the energy that he was emanating was gradually filtering all the way down, all over the country, and it was filtering down to Atlanta. I actually met the first person. I actually had a professor who had been to India. He was an ordained Presbyterian minister, and but he had been to India. He was interested, and I never knew for sure. He eventually met Prabhupada. I never knew for sure if he went to New York, but I believe he did. And he came back in our Hinduism class. We were talking about Lord Chaitanya. He taught the Vedas, the Puranas, the Bhagavad Gita, and the Upanishads, and Lord Chaitanya. Those were the sections that he taught. And I think because he knew of Prabhupada. Then I went to the Caribbean in the summer of '69, and I met someone from New York who had gone to the temple, and he told me I should be chanting Hare Krishna. I began chanting Hare Krishna. And then in December of '69, I was in Berkeley, and a devotee gave me, on the street of Berkeley, it was Hari Basara. I don't know if you know Hari Basara. I still remember it. Such a nice devotee. He handed me a pamphlet, and he said, "Enlightenment, right here in Berkeley." And the pamphlet had a picture of Lord Chaitanya, and it had the Shikshastika prayers inside. So I read the Shikshastika prayers, and I came back to Atlanta. Kirtananda appeared in Atlanta not long after that. And then the devotees came to my apartment. I went to Kirtananda because I had been reading the Shikshastika, and I was so impressed with it. And I saw him, and I said, would you like to stay in my apartment? He said, yes, but on one condition. So what is that? Do you let us cook for you? I said, oh, very nice. So they stayed, and anyway, so by May, Rupanui came, we opened a temple. But I want to talk go back about Srila Prabhupada, because the Shikshastika says, all glories to Sri Krishna Sankirtan, which cleanses the heart of all the dust accumulated for years together, thus the fire of conditional life. Repeated birth and death is extinguished, the Sankirtan movements. The prime benediction for humanity at large, it spreads the rays of benediction moon. Gives us a taste of the nectar for which we're all anxious. Chaito Darpa Margina. So the world, I see it, when I come to Atlanta, I see, people probably used to say, big city means big hell. I didn't think that at the time. I mean, I accept everything Prabhupada said, but I couldn't quite internalize that. Because I thought, big city is pretty nice. It's where all the intelligent people are, it's where the money is. But now I'm seeing it is big hell. And people are suffering. And the world that I know was I've seen in my 50 years, now 70 years, the progress of Kali Yuga. It has definitely progressed. I mean, in some ways it's better. That's the trick of Kali. In some ways it's better. But overall, the level of piety is diminishing. It's very graphic to me, seeing. And so to live here, you have to work so hard. I mean, to be a modern person, to just pay the basic costs. And then Lord Chaitanya instructs us that na danam na janam na sundarim, that you can't just be focused on making money. But if you don't earn money, if you don't work, if you don't work, how are you going to survive? How are you going to support your family? I mean, some few people are fortunate enough they don't have to, but most of us have to in some way engage with Kali. It's his time. And you have to compromise with him. You have to deal with him. Either, I'm a lawyer, so I have to go and do what lawyers do. It's like if you take birth as a dog, you have to wag your tail and bark. That's what you have to do. So if you become a lawyer, you have to work in a certain way. All of us have to do it. If you're a business person or whatever you are, you have to function in that way. So, and you have to earn money. So how do you make spiritual advancement? And then, I can't speak for Hinduism in India, but I can see for Christianity because I was raised in that way. Very difficult. And there are few people who are functioning on some level. It's not to me to criticize them or judge them, but they're tearing down this church. This was the biggest church. I mean, some people worked and paid to build that church thinking it would be there perpetually. Now they're tearing it down. So it's very difficult to have spiritual life in the Kali Yuga. And now it's progressing. And so many demands upon us and so many influences. You can't turn on the television without being bombarded with this influence of Kali, just destroying everything pious. So here comes a person who's born in this pure Gaudiya family. And here he comes to the heart of Kali. I mean, in 1966, which was bad enough. I mean, it's worse now. He came right into the heart of it, and he confronted Kali, and he dealt with him to the extent he had to. And he took unqualified disciples. He said, I have only one sin. I've taken too many unqualified disciples. And he did take many unqualified disciples. And then he initiated women. He did all the things. He initiated us. He did all the things that he had to do so he says to Sruta Kirti, that maybe I'm that person for Mayapur, but not just for Mayapur. Maybe he's that person who came to reestablish the principles of religion that people could actually follow in this age of darkness. So I look around at the people that my contemporaries that I went to college with and I grew up with. And maybe, spiritually there's some benefit because they've heard the holy names or what, but they're basically lost. And now they're in their 70s. They're going to die. Whether the civilization continues for 100 years, it may go 100 years, but it's not going to go 1,000 years. They're going to run out of all the resources that they're exploiting to live the lives that they're living. We. But it's definitely going to end. It's definitely going to end for those guys in their 70s before 100 years is up. And whereas for myself, the only qualification I have is somehow I came under his influence. But I have had and have genuine spirituality in my life. Real. Not to my credit, but to his credit. So maybe he is the one who Lord Chaitanya has selected to come to places like Atlanta, Georgia. I mean, Gainesville, Florida, which he called the remote corner of the world, far from the place of Lord Chaitanya's birth. New York City, Honolulu, all these places that are just deserts of spirituality. London, England. It's just deserts. They're places that are on fire with material suffering. And gave, as Lord Chaitanya gave, this way of actually connecting with spiritual reality. Spiritual reality exists, but we conditioned souls, we can't see it. We can't see it. It's hidden. It's hidden. It's behind the curtain. But we have the faculties to see it from the heart. We can see it. As Sruta Kirti Prabhu said, when Prabhupada describes the cowherd boys going with Krishna to the pasture, he's there. Whereas the rest of us, walking beside him, all we can do is hear, and we get some reflective consciousness. He's there. So, but he has given a way that people can actually have spirituality, spiritual advancement, make progress, actually get to the level of purity in the midst of the Kali Yuga. We can lament, oh my gosh, they're building all these buildings, people never see a tree anymore, or it's just, they have to work so hard, you turn on TV, it's horrible stuff, the food's polluted. All that's true. But the process that Prabhupada has given is so pure and powerful that it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It would be ideal to live in pious circumstances. Even if you don't live in pious circumstances, if you follow what he has given, then you will contact Krishna. First, you see him in the deity form. First, you hear his holy name. And then you see him. Because he's there. He's there in our hearts. He's there behind the sensory world. He's controlling the sensory. Otherwise, how come I don't look like a 22-year-old anymore? I didn't volunteer to become old. It's not something that I deliberately did. It happens automatically. Who is doing that? Who is doing that? That's Krishna. That's Krishna. How does a child grow into an adult grow into an old person, and then pass out of this body? No control over any of that. Who is doing it? Krishna is doing it. His hand is working. You see a beautiful flower? That's Krishna's smiling face. You hear the birds singing in the morning? That's Krishna. You see the sun come up? That's Krishna. He's behind it all. We can't see him, but we can experience him. We can gradually come to see him. We can get out of this prison. Lord Chaitanya has decided he's going to liberate all the sincere souls of this age from this prison house of these bodies. And Prabhupada has brought us the process for doing that. So that's just my 15 years of
Could you tell us how, it was very difficult to get Prabhupada to visit temples in America, as we know. So could you tell us how you got Prabhupada to come to Atlanta?
I didn't do it. I did run for office. That was what it caught his attention. But then what happened is Krishna arranged that Prabhupada, one of his favorite disciples was Sruta Damodar Maharaj, who was from Manipur and was a chemist, PhD in chemistry. Studying, he's got his degree at the University of California, Irvine, I believe. And then somehow he got transferred. He had already graduated, and he was a PhD, and he was transferred to Emory University nearby here, and he lived nearby the temple. And he was in fairly constant communication with Srila Prabhupada. And he was telling Prabhupada, Atlanta's very nice. This is a very nice place, and you should come here. You'll like this place. You please come. And so, at Sruta Damodar's invitation, anyway, I got a letter, I think, and Srila Prabhupada said he was coming, and so we were all very excited. We had just gotten this property when he came. We didn't own it at that time. We were leasing. Columns, a wall, casual conversation, very, very solemn and grave. So we came down Springdale, and we came to that intersection over there, and we looked across. And there was these trees. The trees in the temple were big, but there were no trees in the park, so we had a clear view from Springdale over to the temple. All the devotees were up front. There's a lot of devotees here from Radha Damodar and other temples around. There was a big crowd of devotees on the front porch. And we pulled up. Probably didn't say anything, but he had a smile. See? There's a picture. We stopped right there. So some things, even in this world, last, right? When they're connected with Krishna, they become eternal. It's like the deities. The advanced devotee sees Krishna. Neophyte devotee says, that is Krishna, we believe it, we don't see it the way an advanced devotee, but Krishna appears in this material world visible to us, and his activities, as we read it 5,000 years ago, Bhagavad Gita, still remember. So these activities of the pure devotee, they don't fade away like the other materialistic. However great they may be material, however great, kings and presidents and movie stars, and it just evaporates. It just evaporates like a fog in the morning. It's gone. It's completely gone. It's no substance to it. But when it's connected with Krishna, then it's substance and it lasts.
Balavanti Prabhu ki. We have to tell, when's Balavanti pastime? It's a disputed pastime, but it sounds very nice, so it's become folklore. But when Prabhupada came, this was also Bhaktisiddhanta's appearance day, and that painting you see back there was in New York City. And they brought it down to Atlanta just so that Prabhupada could offer arti to that painting. and it was supposed to go back. Now, how can they go back after that historic landfill? So it's still here. I don't think New York is asking for it. Don't tell us. You can have it $100,000. How about that? No, we need $200,000 to fix something in the building.
Push cars, Pete.
Push cars. Yeah, he comes and sees it every now and then, so he knows it. But anyway, the painting's on the corner here, and Prabhupada is offering artik to Bhakti Siddhanta. And of course, the temple room was packed, and everyone was excited. And you know, it's difficult to communicate. You can imagine a Balavanta standing on Prabhupada's side. And at one point, Prabhupada's offered the water, and he turns to Balavanta and he says, "Give me a bowl." And Balavanta goes, "Hari bowl!" No, give me a bowl. Hari bowl! That's the American way, right? So anyway, Tulsi. We used to keep Tulsi Devi out here also. And some other Prabhupada just took that conch shell and flipped that water all the way right to Tulsi.
And there was no bowl for the water. So he took the conch shell and he just flipped it.
We're talking from that side all
Not,
the way to
not underhanded, overhanded.
Oh, overhand.
Overhanded. And the water just right into Tulsi. Then everybody else goes, "All right, well." But we didn't have
Conch.
we didn't have
Well,
we may not, but I remember we did not have camphor.
Camphor.
And he said, "Where's camphor?" And by that time, Shilavati had stopped camphor all over the movement because it turned everything black. So the problem was, where's camphor?
We're offering it now still. We offer it.
You asked
No
camphor?
problem. I think we're the only temple. Someone walked in and said, "You have 2 lamps?" I said, "Because here, Prabhupada wanted the camphor, so we keep offering." You want to put something else? Some comment? I don't know if some thoughts came to your mind? No. Okay. Well, then at this time, we also have some other devotees who are here. Our time is getting real short. So, I don't know, I'm the one that have to be the bad guy, I guess. But every year, Panchagoda comes and we just neglect it. Everyone knows Panchagoda, and he likes it like that. You see him in the Vrindavan temple, right? He's always in the back, and he's always, you know, giving things to other devotees. I guess that's why Krishna Balaram kept him there so many years. I think he's the longest serving temple president in the Vrindavan temple. That is not an easy task. Temple president anywhere is not easy. What to speak of here in India, you get some extra mercy. So, but you need to say something. I know you don't like to, but please, come up and some thoughts.
Now it's turned to Panchaguna Prabhu to try to come this way so that everybody can see you.
Thank you.
I am like a mosquito with all these huge Srila Prabhupada ki jai. I say, hearing all the devotees speaking about Srila Prabhupada, and I'm sure many of you have heard Prabhupada's voice and feeling of Lord Chaitanya's mercy, Lord Nityananda's mercy. So we have that same feeling also in Vrindavan. When you see Prabhupada offering the artik to Krishna Balaram with a big smile on his face. And he very much wanted all his followers to carry out this mission of preaching, to do something, to go out and spread the mission. As Yadubar Prabhu was saying, he was holding out his CD, that the more we can give Krishna to others, then there's some hope. Otherwise, this Kali Yuga is progressing very, very quickly. In Vrindavan, we're seeing more and more devotees coming. Just last week, we lost 3-4 more devotees, Parvati and Mother Parvati, and also Mother Uttara, another 2-3 devotees. So Vrindavan Dham is a place for great recharging spiritually, holy Dham, seeing Krishna Balaram, Radha Shyama Sundar, Shri Gaura Nitai. It's very exciting, very surcharged spiritually place. Kirtans are very wonderful and intense. It is also a wonderful place to come to leave this material world. Can't spend our whole lives just simply working. Prabhupada gives the example sometimes somebody's worked their whole life and said, okay, now I want to retire. No, you have so many more duties, have to take care of the family. What you have done, continue working. So I'm not saying don't work, we have to work. We have to be practical. But at the same time, keeping the association of devotees and hearing. That's why whenever, if I go somewhere, I like to hang out with Sruta Kirti Prabhu. A lot of the senior devotees, Yaduvar Prabhu, when we were traveling, I said, tell me about how you came to Krishna consciousness. Tell me about Prabhupada. So we should be eager to hear about Prabhupada, also the spiritual process, and keep the association of devotees, because life is very, very short, and we might feel insignificant. We are insignificant, but if we desire very strongly to serve Krishna, to serve Prabhupada, Krishna, Srila Prabhupada makes arrangements, he gives us guidance, he gives us ability to do something. And many times people say, okay, if I come to Vrindavan, what will I do? I say, just come to the program. You come to the program, see the deities, chant with the devotees, be there with the devotees, and Krishna will reveal something for you. Even whatever, and Prabhupada often emphasized, whatever temple we're in, when we're chanting, we're serving, we're dancing, this is also Vrindavan. That's nice. But also come to visit Vrindavan. Krishna Balaram is calling all of you. I think Balavanti Prabhu didn't come for quite some time. Then was it last year or 2 years ago?
2 years ago, that was a wonderful experience. Well, I'm born in a demonic family, and not being very naturally Krishna conscious, in the past going to Vrindavan is a bit of a challenge for me. But this last time, I guess being I'm older, we had the most wonderful experience. We were there for a couple of weeks, and went on parikrama every day. Went to the morning program every morning, and then we go in the early morning hours on the parikrama around Vrindavan. It was just the most pleasing spiritual experience. So yeah, anyone who can go, it's a very special place, Vrindavan, of course, without saying.
Also, Gadi Prabhu was there with us for quite some time. You were in Vrindavan, so, also taking care of MVT for some time. Do you want to say anything?
I have a million things I'd like to say, but I'm not going to say but maybe 2 minutes worth. Vrindavan was an extraordinary experience. And, I bonded a friendship with Ayendra Prabhu, which was also very rewarding. But I would like to say that carrying on the Sankirtan movement in the way that Srila Prabhupada wanted is the most important of all things. And being born of a demoniac family like my godbrother here, we don't have any credentials, we don't have any qualifications. We only have to look upon our past and understand that we have to be completely humble and reduce to ashes any kind of false conception that we have of ourselves. And sometimes this happens to the course of our life where we have, we'll say, some high spiritual experiences and then some crushing spiritual experiences. So we are planning to work very coordinatedly to create some nice experience Krishna Conscious Centers in Tennessee. And right now we are in the process of creating a Goshala, which is very nice. And okay, Hare Krishna. All right, so yeah, I'm going to be quick. So, in the process of prosecuting Krishna consciousness, sometimes you have some very wonderful experiences and sometimes some very difficult ones. I just want everyone to know that at Murari, the atmosphere is completely straight and pure. We had a very, very bad experience in the very recent past. I had to banish 9 people at one time. So, this was something that was unexpected. Anyway, I want to say that we're working forward, and pleasurably so, to create a new environment there. And Hare Krishna. Sruta Kirti is always a bright light to be able to have this association, and there's wonderful stories about Prabhupada. I can't even possibly say anything that would be worthwhile. So I just pray for all of your blessings, that we can do something nice in Tennessee. And I'll pass the baton over to the next contestant. Maybe he can say something worthwhile. Thank you very much. I just have to say that I was taking care of Gaunitai, the Pujari for Gaunitai when Prabhupada came here to Atlanta. And so I was standing here with Prabhupada when he began to cry. And I knew that my life was successful at that moment. From that point on, it went downhill, materially speaking. But spiritually speaking, Prabhupada kept me intact. He never abandoned me, and I never abandoned him. So I hope you all maintain that same spirit. Okay, Hare Krishna.
Actually, it's been, Prabhu, what year did you become devotee? What year? Was it 71, 72? 1971. He's been serving and doing his best to push forward Prabhupada's movement and become Krishna conscious. And sometimes we take these things for granted, you know. Anyway, I mean, I just wanted to say that anyway, I appreciate everything you've done so far for this movement in Atlanta. He's been in Marathi for a long time, and those aren't very easy services to be there by yourself. So we should appreciate, you know, that endeavor. Don't see some other things sometimes that people might want to. So we're warriors, right? When the heroes are the ones who take one for Prabhupada, that's what we say. So it's Grace Gadi Prabhu Ki. Yeah. So we have Basha Ghost and so anyway, we have another 30 minutes, and somehow another India's popped into our new Paniyati down here. Who should I give it to next? I'll put it up.
Thank you for the work that you're doing. Hare Krishna.
I'm Dineshwar Das. And coming back here, I haven't been here since probably mid-80s, so it's really a wonderful experience to be back in New Paniyati. And in 1976, 75, when Prabhupada was here, I received second initiation from him at that time. And it was a wonderful experience, and you've heard the other devotees already speak about Prabhupada's tears and so on at that time, but I don't know if anybody mentioned, but Prabhupada, he was so overwhelmed with joy looking at Gaunitai, and he sang this song, Parama Karuna, and he asked if anybody knew the words, and nobody knew the words at that time. But he sang that wonderful tune, Parama Karuna Bahundvi Jana Nitai Gaura Chandra. If anybody has a recording of that, I want it. There's 5 or 6 recordings of Prabhupada singing that song, but none with that melody. And I'm very eager to find it somehow. Anyway, it was a very memorable occasion with Prabhupada here at that time, and so many devotees. I had a preaching center in Charlotte. Actually, I took over from Gaudi. Gaudi started it up there. And then I came from Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and then to Charlotte. And so the Atlanta devotees would come up to Charlotte very close, and they would come up and do book distribution up there with us. So we had a close connection with the Atlanta temple through those years. And so it's very memorable to come back and see that this temple is still going on nicely, and still see the deities are being maintained, taken care of so beautifully. It's a joyful occasion. So thank you very much, all of you who are continuing to carry on the service
of the deities and should push on Srila Prabhupada's mission in this area. Hare Krishna.
Also, Dhaneshwar Prabhu with Sridhana Maharaj and Gopi Paranadhana in Miami finished the Srimad Bhagavatam. He was managing the whole operation for the Srimad Bhagavatam, translations and production to finish that. There's a great effort for several years in Miami. We worked together. CK.
One more. He can go for 30 minutes by himself. This is Guy Prabhu. He's been up in Tennessee for a long time trying to keep our farm going there, and he'll share his.
I don't have much to offer actually, but I do recall lots of service here at the Atlanta Temple. I remember getting hit up by some devotees as I was traveling with the BTG initially, and then at one point I was a musician, so I was traveling all over the United States. So different cities that I would come in from the early 70s, I would run across devotees. And I remember one time I was on the way to a nightclub at Underground Atlanta, and I saw this beautiful black-bodied devotee who knocked on my window. I rolled down the window, and Balabhadra hit me up with a Back to Godhead magazine. And I remember that was a time that changed my life. I had seen devotees in Miami. I had run across devotees in Boston, San Francisco, but that was a moment in time, and Balabhadra was at this temple. So I came to this temple, and I came in the door, and I remember seeing Balavanti, who is the temple president here, and immediately he began to instruct me in Krishna consciousness. The main instruction was chant 16 rounds, and within 2 weeks, you'll move into the temple. And I thought to myself, how is this possible? I have no idea that I'm moving into the temple. I was supposed to go to Europe, actually, to play in a band there, and we were booked out of Atlanta, Georgia. So when I went back to my apartment here in Atlanta, I remember I did take his advice. And immediately, Krishna took everything that I owned away from me. I lost my girlfriend. I lost my job. I lost everything. So I had no place to turn except for Panahati Dham. So within 2 weeks, literally, I had moved into the temple. I had a trumpet, and I remember giving it, donating it to the temple, and they were going to melt it down because it was silver and use it for book distribution. So I was pretty excited about that. But I had hair down to here at the time, so I was a very unlikely looking potential devotee of the Lord. But I remember when the buzzer sound started in my head was a nice shiny ball. Immediately I was promoted to the position of Vice President of pot washing. So they gave me these pots that were all burned on the bottom, and it was my job to get the burn off.
Was Sadhaputta at that time with you?
Sadhaputta, yeah. So I'm eternally indebted to all these great Vaishnava devotees who have instructed me along the way. And I remember being put out on book distribution, and they realized that I could distribute books. So initially I was Chardashina's main book bag carrier. And so I was rushing back and forth, and then I was promoted actually to Sankirtan party leader and Bhakti program director, so many different things in the service of Srila Prabhupada. So I am eternally Prabhupada's dog because of the mercy of great Vaishnava devotees like Balavanti Prabhu, Balabhadra Chardashina, Gadidas, so many nice devotees who instructed me in Krishna consciousness. And so therefore, I'm eternally in their debt and in their service. I am Prabhupada's dog. Hari Bol.
Thank you, Gayatri Prabhu, you're too kind. I wanted to mention also that I brought with me from the Goshala a lot of milk products. I just wanted to say that I have a booth over here with ghee, butter, paneer, gomutra, cow patties, you name it. The cows have made it, and come over and see me. All right. I had to plug that, sorry.
Yeah. So we have, all the ghosts are here. We have a ghost taco. I was telling him I get them all mixed up. And he's in Vancouver, and originally I think Montreal, right?
There's like two ways you can look at Prabhupada. You can see when you met Prabhupada, I saw Prabhupada about 4 times. One time in Dallas, one time in Montreal, one time in Toronto and Mayapur. So it's hard to really have feelings for Prabhupada fully when you're a conditioned soul. So for me, it's not so, I got benefit by seeing Prabhupada, but I could not understand Prabhupada very much at that time. But the understanding, if I had any understanding of Prabhupada, came after reading his books and trying to follow his instruction. Then whatever effort I made to serve him and purify my senses, then to that degree, some attachment for Prabhupada took place. So, this Prabhu was saying, this Prabhu here, he was saying he lost everything when he came to Krishna consciousness. I didn't lose anything because I didn't have anything. I was living at my parents' place, and I didn't even have the courage to be a hippie, because a hippie, they have to come out of home and live in a park somewhere. I don't want to do that. So I stayed at home watching TV and not accomplishing anything. Then somehow Krishna leads the devotee back to the guru. So I had an encounter with an impersonalist yogi before. And I really liked it, like practicing meditation and breathing. But then somebody gave me the Bhagavad Gita, and I read the whole Bhagavad Gita as it is. And then I remember only one verse, Sarvadharma Parityajya, just as in all varieties of religion. Surrender unto me, I shall protect you from all sinful reaction. So I thought, wow, protecting me from all sinful reaction. That's really what I need, because I'm not very pious. So then I realized actually this impersonal thing is selfish, because you want your own liberation. It's a very wonderful process, but devotional service is superior because you're selfless. You just give to Krishna without expecting anything in return. So not that I was like that, but I had the idea from Prabhupada that pure devotional service means that you give to Krishna instead of trying to ask from Krishna. So it's only because a pure devotee like Srila Prabhupada could teach us the transcendental knowledge that we can actually make any progress. In the West, there ain't no transcendental knowledge. People think they're their bodies. That's it. They don't know anything else. We don't realize how advanced we are by having received this knowledge from Prabhupada. So it's like a wonderful gift from God to be able to connect with Prabhupada in the disciplic succession, and we don't really understand how we deserve all this. But it's there, so might as well take advantage of it, because time is going by fast, and whatever we do materially is not just going to totally going to be forgotten. And whatever little service, little surrender we can do, that will be our permanent asset. So I thank all the assembled devotee and Srila Prabhupada to engaging me in Krishna service. All right.
I'm going to go over here in the corner and get pizza dots. We're not going to make them come through the crowd. So all the lamps have always known pizza. He's had a lot of experience with Prabhupada. Actually, he was here also when Prabhupada was here. Can you give us maybe one pastime?
When we finally came to after 3 months of being in Srila Prabhupada's movement, we arrived here at Panihati. And we were on Sankirtan every day. We lived in vans. And we slept on picnic tables. And I knew when I joined this movement that I would meet Srila Prabhupada. I didn't know how, but I just knew I would be him. And I joined in Miami, thinking that Prabhupada would be at the temple when I walked in. He would be there, because I saw his picture. And I had met Tamal Krishna Maharaj and Vishnu John in Miami, and they had showed me Radha Damodar. When I saw Radha Damodar, they had these aurora borealis gems and lights were coming out. And I saw that and I thought, these are divine beings, these are not ordinary. And Krishna John was like, to me, he was like, even more, he was the first person I ever saw from the spiritual world. I didn't think that he was an ordinary human being. I thought he was, even as a party, I thought that. So I wanted to join him. And then he told me, no, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada is who you want to. So then we went to the temple in Miami, and then I thought Prabhupada would be there, but Prabhupada didn't come. And then they were under the trees in Miami. They would instruct us in Krishna. So we would listen to all the pastimes of Krishna book, and Vishnu John would explain these pastimes to us. And we would argue with him. How can Balaram pull up trees? How can Davidika invite Davidika up the trees? And of course we can do. Vishnu John was completely convinced that I couldn't. So anyway, I joined the Radha Damodar with Vipra. Vipra was part of the group, and he told me, how you able to see Srila Prabhupada is you join Radha Damodar, because wherever we go, we meet Prabhupada. I said, well, I want to be with you. He said, well, you blew. And then we picked you up on the road. So then the next thing I knew, I was on Sankirtan, constantly cut from one part to, and then we finally end up here. The night before we come, I don't even know that we're going to be with Srila Prabhupada. We just know that all of a sudden Maha Mantra, he was my bhakta leader, he said, no, we're not going to sleep tonight. We're going to drive all night long in the van. We're going to come to Los Angeles and we're going to meet Prabhupada. We're going to actually meet him. And I'll tell you, in 3 months, Prabhupada took me from a burnt out, completely useless human being and actually started to plant seeds of Krishna consciousness in my head that have never left me. And when Srila Prabhupada came, he came right up to this tree, and I was standing right in this window, and it was very cold. And I looked out, and then the car came up, and we saw Prabhupada come out of the tree, come out of the car. And Srila Prabhupada, all of a sudden, I thought he was like a mountain. Because when I saw Prabhupada, I said, Prabhupada is like a mountain, and behind Prabhupada, and the closer you get, he's like, that mountain is so big, he's blocking the sun out. And so I thought, Prabhupada is so big. And we saw Prabhupada come out and said, oh, he's shorter than Balavanti. And then he came out through here, and he came into this door here, and then he paid his obeisances, and we all paid our obeisances. And I just, like, I had joined in Philadelphia, and Rabindranath Sarup saved my life. Rabindranath Sarup also saved my life. He gave me a flower and he said, offer this to Srila Prabhupada's lotus feet. And I thought, oh, no. He said, no. As soon as we offered to Prabhupada's lotus feet, everything in my life changed. Everything changed. My whole life's changed. And my whole life has been blessed by Srila Prabhupada. We spent time in China. And in China, sometimes it's not easy to be Krishna conscious. Because it's all kinds. In those days, there were no other devotees. It's just me. And Krishna put us in a situation, you know, and somehow or other, Prabhupada was always there giving me good points, you know, telling me. I would just say, Prabhupada, I know I'm in Maya, but if I can only be 2% Krishna conscious like you, I'll make it through. So I've always prayed, Srila Prabhupada, you're like, you know, you're like a mountain. If I can only be just a small percentage of the Krishna consciousness you have, then everything would, I would definitely go back on that to God. Jai Hare Krishna.
Is there a